Good afternoon, sports fans, and welcome to Hart Lane. Now, this is a very nostalgic day because it's Tottenham Hotspur's last game at their old stadium, which they've been in for 118 years. Now, all the media here today are focusing on this momentous occasion, but I have to correct the media because they keep on saying it's Tottenham's last game at Hart Lane. Now, as most supporters know, this is not Tottenham's last game at Hart Lane. What they're actually doing is they're knocking down their old stadium and they're building a new one on it. But they are extending it, so it will be much, much larger to take almost 62,000. Now, let's talk about some of the past history. I recall coming to this ground with my late father. He used to lift me up over the turnstiles and give the man probably about sixpence or a shilling in those days. And my memories of my very first game coming as a season ticket holder was around 67, 68. And I think my first game, funny enough, was a semi-final in the League Cup against Arsenal. And I think it ended up as 1-1, but we lost on the aggregate. And from there on, I've been a regular member and supporter of Spurs, coming almost to every home game, and seen lots and lots of wonderful players in my time. A few that stick out are the likes of Jimmy Greaves, who was the most gifted centre forward I think I've ever seen. But he was also known as an inside forward, and he played alongside Alan Gilzean, who had the deftest of touches. And in that era, I saw the likes of Dave Mackay, who broke his leg twice and came back from it. And we had a wonderful centre half called Mike England, and one of the most amazing goalkeepers I think I've ever seen in Pat Jennings. There are very few goalkeepers that have come up to his expertise in the goal area. Someone like Peter Schmeichel, maybe, Ray Clements, Peter Shilton, as we all know. And we reached the 70s, and Spurs, along with Arsenal and Chelsea, were doing very well in those early years. Spurs won a few League Cups. They also won the UEFA Cup in 72, and they lost it in 74 against Feyenoord in Rotterdam. Now that very last game in Europe was the end of Billy Nick, because he couldn't stomach the way that English football crowds had gone, and he resigned. We've had a few, I would say, dodgy managers in our time, but the ones that stand out are the likes of Steve Birkinshaw, who rebuilt the Spurs side and made them a very, very good cup team. Again, winning the UEFA Cup in the 80s, the League Cup, the FA Cup. We nearly won the treble. Can't remember the year itself. And in that era, we had the likes of Glenn Hoddle and Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa. Keith Birkinshaw made an audacious bid to sign two Argentinian World Cup players. As we all know, Ricky Villa and Ozzy Ardiles, who had an immediate impact on the club. And I remember that very first day with all the ticker tape that came down. Never forget that. And after that, we're very much in the doldrums. We had a lot of semi-finals, one or two finals, but we haven't really done much in the last 20 years, as we all know. The last 3 years, Spurs have secured a fantastic Argentinian manager in Mauricio Pochettino, and he has moulded this team into a team. In the past, Spurs have been known to be a team of individual players, and we haven't really gone very far. We've only ever really done cup tournaments, but never in the league. In that time as well, in the 90s, we had a fantastic player called Paul Gascoigne, and he just about had everything, along with his predecessor in that same position, Glenn Hoddle, who was probably the most gifted player I think I've ever seen. So now we have a team that has done very well over the last 2 seasons. They've progressed. There are no individuals. They play as a team. But we have a few outstanding players there. Toby Alderweireld, Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen, who makes the team tick. And we have the likes of Dele Alli, who kind of reminds me a bit of Martin Peters, who was known as the Ghost. He just seems to be there in the right place at the right time and scores some wonderful goals. Now, as we all know, we've got a new stadium being built, and so this is our last game here for at least one season. Spurs are going to play next year at Wembley. I've already bought my season ticket, and I'm looking forward to playing there. Now, we've played there several times this year, and we haven't done well, as we all know. But we've got to bury that hoodoo, and we've got to move forward as a team, which I'm sure if Mauricio Pochettino remains and all the players stay, we add 1 or 2 players in certain areas. I know Spurs are actually after a couple of players, the likes of Wilfried Zaha. There's also Barkley from Everton, and I think they're after some player called Izoso. I think he plays at Real Madrid, but we shall see. There's also rumours that Kyle Walker has been tapped up by Man City for a much larger wage, around 150,000 a week. Now, what I would say is that we know that Spurs have got a very, very good, healthy bank balance, and this club is going to cost around about £800 million to complete. Having said that, we're moving into a new era now, and all the fans are looking forward to steady progression season upon season. But the one thing we can't do is we can't let our good players go. So somewhere and somehow Daniel Levy and the board have to find the money to keep these players. Now, I've discussed a lot of this on the Spurs forum, which is on Facebook, and I'm hearing all kinds of different responses back from all the members. But what I would say is it's now time to pay the players' wages. It may be difficult in the beginning, but I think that all of the Spurs first team need to be paid a healthy wage of at least £100,000 a week, and maybe a little bit more. We've seen the likes of Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Liverpool pay their players wages in order to keep them at the club. We have to do the same. We've got to keep up there with the Joneses. It's the old saying. So, to all you fans out there, thanks for the memories. Been to see some amazing games here in the past. Can't really put my finger on any one particular one, but this season so far, Spurs remain unbeaten at White Hart Lane, and it would be an amazing achievement to polish off Manchester United and keep that home record intact. So I hope everyone, all the Spurs fans who are attending the stadium today, all the Spurs fans around the world, I hope you enjoy the game. It's being televised on Sky Sports. We keep our fingers crossed that Spurs win today, and a little while later, once I get let in around the ground, because it's currently shut, I shall be taking some more photos of how Spurs are progressing. So, this is Peter Christie, sportsforsports.co.uk, signing off and wishing you all the best